Well, you're not going to be surprised. I bought a watch, but this is a watch that I didn't even expect to ever own. It's a watch that I've been chasing for about 6 years. They are extremely rare. They're from a company that went out of business, and I was able to buy one by chance. It has an extremely weird jump hour movement from a brand you really would not expect, and it's made out of full meteorite. So the entire case is meteorite. It's a jump hour. It takes a lot of inspiration from Art Deco design. It's a weird, funky watch. It's everything that I love about watch collecting. And of course, I have one hands-on because I bought one. It is a David Rudden Streamline. So let's flip the camera and take a look at my latest purchase. So are you like me? Is it the thrill of the chase when you're hunting down a watch and you finally find it? Is that part also exciting? I have been chasing this watch for about 6 years. Back in 2019, this was up for a GPHG. Before it was up for that GPHG, I was actually in contact with this brand and I wanted to buy one of their watches. They were under 10,000 Swiss francs, which back then was a lot of money for me to be considering to spend on a watch. However, I wanted one of these watches and I tried to buy one. And unfortunately, they kind of gave me a little bit of a runaround when I went to buy it because I think they were having some problems. And to be honest, I didn't have the money, so I kind of put it to the side and never ended up buying it. The price more than doubled and I wasn't able to buy it. So there was a number of reasons. I would later find out why that was. So they were very ambitious, let's say, because this is a very difficult watch to make. You can see it's a jump hour watch. That's not really the difficult part, although it is kind of difficult to do because they did this, how could I put it, in a way that no other brand has ever done, including the manufacturer of the movement. We'll talk about that in just a few seconds. That part will probably surprise you because there is some relation to Christopher Ward here. We'll talk about that, like I said, in a few seconds. This is a full meteorite case. So what they did was buy a bunch of meteorite, cut it up into basically the size of this watch, obviously a little bit larger, and then they milled them down into the case that you see before you. And when they did that, they noticed that there were some inclusions, some discolorations, some imperfections, maybe some areas that were completely evacuated, and there were holes in areas in the cases because this is a natural material. It's a meteorite, fell out of the sky, and they're going to have some natural elements to it that aren't perfect. So when they were trying to make deliveries on some of these watches, the customers were either not accepting them or they found those cases to be unacceptable. Also, there was a high failure rate because this is meteorite. It is a natural piece of metal, essentially. There was a percentage of those blanks, of those blocks of meteorite that turned out to be not good for a case. Maybe there was a fracture through it, or there was something literally wrong and it broke while they were making it. So because of all of those issues that they experienced during the manufacturing of the case, that drove up the price. They did not expect to encounter all of those problems. However, they did make deliveries on these watches eventually. They did not make deliveries on many of them. In fact, I think this was a limited edition of 88. I'm pretty sure they only got into the 50s. And this is one of their latest versions. So I say version because there were, I think, around 2 versions of the same exact watch. And I'll explain why in just a second. This is a meteorite case. It has a very Art Deco design. It is curved. And essentially the entire case is made out of meteorite. You can see here when you turn it on its side, the crown is not made out of meteorite. And the case back is made out of titanium. Everything else is in meteorite. It's actually a pretty heavy watch. You have a little window that's a sapphire crystal, and that is a jump hour movement inside. You have the hour, you have the minutes, and then you have the seconds. The hour is a very large hour display, which is not typical for most jump hours. Then you have a dragging minutes, and then you have a running seconds disc. When you flip over the watch, there is a window that lets you see their in-house movement. Now you can't see I'm doing air quotes when I say in-house because technically this is not an in-house movement. Like many brands, they outsource the movement to a company that made the movement for them. This is an SH21, a Christopher Ward SH21 with 120 hours of power reserve with a JJ01 module on top. A Christopher Ward movement that Christopher Ward never used. So they use the SH21, but they don't use it with their jump hour mechanism. They only use that mechanism, that jump hour module, their in-house module, on a Sleeta SW200, an automatic movement that is a base movement off the shelf. They don't use their in-house movement. This is the only watch, to my knowledge, that has this movement with that module. And it's very customized. As you can see, it looks nothing like a Christopher Ward movement because they put completely custom bridges that are custom finished on here as well. You have a sapphire crystal. This is a round movement, but they wanted to make it look square, so they put a little rectangle-sized sapphire crystal. Screwed in case back, you're only getting 30 meters of water resistance. It says David Rudden right there. It says the number limited edition. It is right there. So I was saying there was maybe two different versions of this watch, not a second version really. The only difference between this and the original versions that were delivered is that this one has an extra hard coating. And the reason why this one has an extra hard coating is because those original ones that they made delivery on rusted. This is an iron meteorite. So when they made deliveries of them, they physically rusted. When anybody got them wet, immediately they would rust. So that was adding to the fact that they were already having problems and essentially losing money on this. And it just added to all of that, and eventually they went out of business because they had to take back all the watches they did make delivery of and then refinish all of those watches, add a clear DLC coating, and then return the watches. So imagine doing that and being a business that has sold a watch and then having to take all of them back to recoat them. It's a pretty big deal. They changed the name of the company. I think they're called Ukrani now. In fact, I know they are. And like I was saying, this is a jump hour. So I'm going to just pull out the crown, and you have a really smooth jump hour on this watch. When you advance it, it's a really solid click, and that's it. It is very similar. I want you to hear it. It's very similar, and I'll put it up to the mic, to what you would get from Christopher Ward. In fact, it's exactly like what you would get from Christopher Ward because it is a Christopher Ward movement. You have a nice crown on here. It's very nicely sized. The watch in general is a nice size as well, at least for my wrist. I think some people will think this is on the larger side for their wrist. It's curved. As you can see, the whole entire case is curved. It's on the larger side, so it's around 37.5 millimeters wide, and then you have around a 53 and change millimeter lug to lug, and then a 15 millimeter thickness. But it doesn't wear very large, and I'll show you that on my wrist in just a second. Let me show you the watch that I have on my wrist today. I wore it for a specific reason because it has the exact same movement as this watch. Today I have on my Christopher Ward Loco, and the reason why I wore this is because this is the CW001, which is essentially their SH21. They changed the name of this at some point, and the reason why they did that is because this is a hand-wound version of it. I have other watches with the SH21, but you could see if you look at the back of this watch, and maybe I could do a side-by-side. If I can figure that out, I will. But you could see that this movement looks very similar to the one that's in the David Rudden. In fact, I think it was sort of positioned like this in the David Rudden. But It's a very similar movement, obviously different finishings on both of these watches, and they updated this so that you have the balance wheel on the front and the time telling portion, at the top. This is a more modern take on the movement, but it's essentially the same movement. 120 hours of power reserve, really good looking, made by Christopher Ward, except it has a jump hour. And there it is on my 7.5-inch wrist. Everything about this watch works for me. I know some people will not find this attractive. Like I was saying, I just love the design. You can see the little objects here. There's a reason why I like this design. I just find it nostalgic, and I love Art Deco design. It feels like a piece of the Empire State Building for my wrist. That might sound a little bit weird, maybe because it is, but I love the ridges in the case, the way that they did this. The font that they use is a proprietary font. They created this font specifically for this watch. The color of the font that they used, everything about it works for me. And the fact that it's made out of meteorite, something so rare and interesting. I love it. This is a 37 millimeter watch, essentially 37 millimeters. You have a large or long lug to lug of around 53.9 millimeters, so it is very long, but it's stepped and it doesn't wear very long. And then you have a thick watch of around 15 millimeters thick. I have a 7.5-inch wrist, but you can see it wears pretty nice on my 7.5-inch wrist. I think it looks really good. This is a very unique watch with a very unique movement, with a very unique case. There's nothing about this watch that is off the shelf. It's something that you will never see out in the wild. You're never going to see anybody wearing this watch. And there's a lot of people out there right now saying, yeah, there's a good reason why you won't see a lot of people wearing this watch, because it's ugly. Some people will find this ugly. Some people will find it really cool. I'm one of the ones that find it really cool. If you find it really ugly, I completely understand. We don't have to have the same taste. That's the reason why watch collecting is so interesting. If we all had the same taste, then we would all be wearing Rolexes. This is not a Rolex. That's kind of the point here. I think it's cool, and that's why I bought it. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of this watch? What do you think of the fact that meteorite cases are so hard to make? There are very few out there. There were a few brands that have made meteorite cases. One is De Bethune, and there's another brand. Those were around $500,000. Actually, I think the De Bethune is actually more expensive than that. And then on the more affordable side, Toledano and Chan, I think were the only other watch brand to make a meteorite case that cost under $10,000. That was a very simple, very small case compared to this, but it was made out of meteorite. So that case was extremely small. It was around 32 millimeters, but it's also very thin. And I think the lug to lug was very small as well. This is basically a chunk of meteorite compared to most of the watches that I just mentioned. Most of those watches, except for the De Bethune, which is a very large piece of meteorite. The other ones were meteorite that were pieced together, which is a little bit easier to do. This is really hard to do. Get a large piece of meteorite. It's almost like diamond. Getting a larger diamond and making it look good is very, very hard, because obviously you're going to get inclusions, imperfections. And you can see there's some inclusions and imperfections on this, but nothing major. I love it. I think it's interesting. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It's super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. That's really it, guys. Thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Add a comment down below. Tell me what you think of this watch, and I will catch you guys in the next